All rise.
Welcome to the Cyber Law and Business Report. Get the top story on the hot button internet legal topics of the day. This is your home for the latest on internet law and policy. Hear the latest net trends impacting business and have your questions answered right here. This is the Cyber Law and Business Report. Now, please welcome your host, the founder of the Internet Law Center, Bennett Kelly.
Good morning. This is Bennett Kelly from sunny Southern California here in Silicon Beach in Santa Monica, California. We have a great show for you today. One of the things about the internet is that it gives a voice to people and stories that are often ignored in the mainstream media and elsewhere. And so when I heard that the London Olympics was not going to recognize the 40th anniversary of the Munich Games and the tragedy that occurred there, I decided, well, that's something the internet can do. And so I thanks to Bob Bodell, I was able to get in touch with Tom McMillen, who is one of the greatest players in ACC history, played 11 seasons in the National Basketball Association, Rhodes Scholar, and the tallest member of Congress ever. But more importantly, he was a member of the 1972 Olympic team. And Tom, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good to be on.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming on to help us kind of commemorate Munich 40 years later. But very briefly, I want to start off. You were the tallest member of Congress, and you also served what I believe the shortest member of Congress in your delegation was Barbara Mikulski. Was she not?
Well, that's correct. I always wondered whether the shortest was correct because you go way back in history. There's probably
there had to be a few gnomes.
And there were maybe shorter than 4'11", but there haven't been any taller than 6'11". We know that. So
now I always recall pictures of LBJ in the Senate. This using his height, leaning into people. You're in the House, which is a different body. Was your height an advantage there, or were you still just a junior member?
I don't think it really matters too much in politics. I mean, it's good in when you go out to an event, people know you're there. They also know you're not there, so it's double-edged. But I think it's. I don't think it was a detriment anyway.
Well, definitely not. So let's talk a little bit. Let's do the lead up to how you got to be an Olympian. And you were the number one high school player in America and heavily recruited by Lefty Driesell, Dean Smith. What made you choose Maryland?
It's a long story. My father was in the early stages of an illness that eventually cause him, it would be fatal in my senior year, but he wanted to see me play, and it was a lot closer for me to him to see me play at Maryland than North Carolina or another school. I had been appointed by President Nixon as really one of the youngest presidential appointees ever to the President's Council on Fitness and Sports, and so that was an opportunity to be near the Capitol. Plus, Maryland really hadn't really had a program. My brother had played there, but they had really not developed an exceptional program. So it was a chance to make something as opposed to perpetuate something.
Right, and you did. I mean, in your 3 years and as a varsity player, you were ranked in the top 5 each year. But unfortunately, because of the peculiarities of the NCAA rules at that time, only the conference champion got to go to the NCAA, which meant that despite having a 73-17 record over those 3 years, you only got to go to the NCAA once.
Well, and as a result, of that inequity, they changed the rules after our senior year. We had played North Carolina State to a triple overtime game in North Carolina in the ACC finals. And and then of course State went on to win the national championship. So it was really the impetus of that game that caused the NCAA to widen, and expand the number of teams in the tournament.
And actually, the very next year they did. Unfortunately,
that's right. Yeah.
But so getting to other inequities, though, we're going to talk a little bit about the games in Munich. So you had been an All-American and were invited to be part of the 72 Olympic team. And what's interesting in looking into this, everyone is familiar with the fact that, what happened in Munich was the first loss for a U.S. basketball team in the Olympics. But I wasn't aware that we'd failed to get a medal in the Pan American Games the year before. And so you have this team coming off that, but it was different players, of course. And so, but there was a lot of controversy over who was part of the team, both in terms of the coaching and the players. And, for example, why wasn't Wooden and asked, or why wasn't Bill Walton part of the team? And what are your recollections about that?
Well, as far as the coach goes, that was pretty much an internal Olympic committee issue. Wooden would have been a great coach. As you know, Dean Smith coached the next time around. Hank Iva had been around a long time. He was a known figure, and he had had an exceptional record. But it was true that I think his style of play was more traditional than the players that we had on the team. So I think that a faster style of play may have been more I think in line with the kind of talent we had. And the players, Bill Walton didn't play. He obviously was a great college player. He would have been a tremendous help in that game, or in the whole Olympics, quite frankly. But, for some reason he decided not to play.
Yeah, I think he asked if, because his doctors said that they were concerned about him going through the tryout process. He said he would do it if he didn't have to do tryouts, and the coach said no. And
No,
so
the tryout was pretty rigorous. We were doing 2-a-day workouts in Hawaii, and it was just very, very exhausting. And without air conditioning and in the hot of the summer, it was pretty stifling.
And I think watched some of the clips, and I think it was Mike Banham who said that, we saw that we were going to Honolulu and we thought this is great. We're going to be by the beach and everything's going to be wonderful. We didn't know that we had just joined the Navy.
That's true. It was pretty rough. It was Pearl Harbor, and we were
It's a reveille, right?
in barracks, and it was pretty rigorous camp.
So, obviously you made the team, and a number of other, famous players who are now well known. Phil Collins uh, made the team, and so then you get to Munich, and you enter the Olympic Stadium. What was that like to be a member of the Olympic team and walk into the stadium?
I think that's probably one of the most memorable experiences, because when you walk into the Olympic Stadium, you're wearing USA, and the crowds are cheering. Munich's a great town. It was a great place for the Olympics, and that's sort of the penultimate moment for an athlete to be in the opening ceremony. So there's a high point to that, but quickly it fades away, and we had to practice diligently, and we had to train, and your focus gets more on that in the upcoming games, although in the beginning they weren't very challenging. But we had to nevertheless worry about getting ready, which really, the distraction of the Olympics, you couldn't really be part of.
And you're in a village. What's the interaction like with the players?
There was some interaction. It's interesting, though, as I said, you get to know a few of the other players, and you talk to them. It's a big village. You go to this common dining area, but there's always like these things. You're only there for a couple of weeks. So you don't have time to make a lot of friends. You meet people, but you're more or less sticking to your team, because that's sort of the inculcation, the process that you're going through, which is you've got to be very, very focused, very dedicated. And as a result, you don't get a lot of the external experiences of the Olympics. As Michael Phelps said, he goes to these towns and he only sees the swimming pool. There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, it's true. He looks down too. He doesn't look up for the most part. And I think the bottom of the swimming pool is the same everywhere. Now talking about being focused, in the initial rounds of play, you guys beat Japan by 66 points, Egypt by 65 points. Had you ever had a victory that lopsided before?
No, in high school and probably in college when I was a freshman, we had some pretty big victories, but that's sort of a false confidence because while those teams were still struggling to get their programs off the ground, we knew that there were some real talented teams that we were going to meet. So you still had to take it very seriously, even though the couple of games were very easy.
No, and then things did get very serious on September 5th. The Israeli athletes were taken hostage, and where were you when you heard about that?
We woke up that morning and we heard the commotion. You could see it on TV. ABC was live in our village. You could actually watch the telecast or walk over and see the part of the compound where the terrorists were positioned with it. Yeah, I mean we all did. I don't even think we practiced that day. I think the whole Olympic Village was in a state of suspension because no one knew what was going to happen.
And so while that's happening, everything's in suspension, and then of course it unfolds, and who can forget? Jim McKay's. They're all gone. Is that how you learned that they were killed through Jim McKay, or it just the buzz?
I think so because we saw the helicopters leave the village. You could see the lights, but I think obviously we heard rumors. The word went around very quickly, but then of course it was confirmed on television.
And when they were first taken, did the U.S. Olympic Committee get brief you or say anything, or there was just so much confusion there was nothing they could do?
You really got your messages through your team, through your managers and so forth. So we knew that there was going to be a memorial, but we didn't know what was going to happen to the Olympics. And there was discussion of even canceling them. So,
what did you think?
Even though many of us felt that was such a tragic attack on the village, that many of us felt maybe they should cancel it. But I certainly felt that way. But in retrospect, I think that would have been a mistake because
they would have won.
If we've learned one thing in terrorism, it's not let the terrorists, change your world. So I think it was important that they didn't cancel the Olympics.
Was it hard to grasp that something like that could happen? That an event designed to promote world brotherhood and.
Well, that was the surreal nature of it, is that you have that thing, this terrible attack going on in the village, which is so foreign to a platform built for sport. And here we are, pretty young kids, young adults coming over there, and here we're thinking the Olympics are this great panacea, brotherhood and sport and all that. And then to see it was really ended up being so tragic an outcome was a very sobering experience.
And now 40 years later, and I guess this will come up every five Olympics. You're going to have a round number. It's going to be 20, 40, 60. And so we now have the 40th anniversary of the tragedy. What do you think would have been appropriate for the Olympic Committee to do this time?
I think they should have had a moment of silence during the opening ceremony. I think that would have been very appropriate for lots of reasons. One is to pay homage to those athletes, but to pay homage to a world that's had to suffer through many other terrorist attacks.
Sure.
This thing has been a plague on the world, and that it was appropriate to take a time out and just remember. And I'm surprised they did not do that. I would have been wholeheartedly in support of it.
It is disappointing. So we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, Tom's going to stay with us, and we're going to talk about the gold medal game, the controversial last 3 seconds, and more after these messages from Webmaster Radio.
Blog. Webmasterradio.fm. We're the talk of the town. Webmasterradio.fm. Thanks for listening. Webmasterradio.fm. We're everywhere.
The best gavel-to-gavel legal news and information on the net is right here. This is the Cyber Law and Business Report, only on webmasterradio.fm.
And we're back. This is Bennett Kelly. You're listening to the Cyber Law and Business Report, and our special guest is former Congressman and Olympian Tom McMillen, who was a member of the 1972 U.S. basketball team, and which participated in what is still to this day the most controversial game in Olympic history. And Tom, it seemed that it all comes down to the final minutes. The U.S. was down by 8 with about 5 minutes to play. And as you were talking earlier, the slow style of play was really seen to be holding you guys back. And I've seen clips where the players have said that they decided to take over and play their way. Is that what happened?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, the players started running more, and obviously we had to up-tempo the game because we were behind and we had to do something differently. And so we were able to, narrow that lead and really go ahead. So, but I think it was the acceleration of the game that made a difference.
And the thing to keep in mind is this was the youngest team in U.S. team in Olympic history, and you're playing against a veteran Soviet team that played hundreds of games together. So you're definitely there's definitely a difference in the experience level. But as you guys took charge, could you see a reaction in the Soviets? Was there a sense of fear that they were going to lose this game?
Well, I mean, always that's the case. I mean, but remember, we're coming from behind, so they were just oftentimes, it's, the teams ahead has to hold the lead, and it's very difficult to do that. You start to sort of freeze up, if you will, and I think the Soviets became less assertive, and we became more assertive. So I mean, that's often the ebb and flow of a basketball game, and I think our young athleticism started to kick in, and I think that made the difference.
Now the young athleticism definitely kicked in with you blocked a shot that led to a fast break, and Doug Collins, who I accidentally called Phil Collins, although I'm sure Doug would be a great drummer too. Doug Collins does a layup, goes for a layup, and is like plowed into the stand for the basket, and it looked like he was pretty badly hurt. Did you think he was going to be able to get up and make the foul shots?
I did. I mean, he's a pretty tough kid. He took a bang, but most guys would get up and want to shoot those free throws. He's not going to do what he did and sit down. So I was pretty sure he'd shoot them. And he's an athlete, and this is the world stage. It doesn't get any better than that.
And you grew up playing for this moment. And, it was
it's probably two of the most pressured free throws in the history of basketball. I mean, the fact is he's got 2 free throws. If he misses them, we lose. If he makes one, we're tied. And if he scores both, we win effectively.
Not just win a gold medal, you win a game against the Soviet Union during, probably the height of the Cold War.
Well, there's a lot at stake. As I said, they were extremely pressurized free throws.
Was the streak, was that a burden? Were you cognizant of that, the fact that the U.S. had never lost, or just, you just played each game and didn't think about it?
We were very cognizant of that because there was a lot of pressure on us. Like, we've won 65 games, 7 gold medals, and obviously we didn't want to be the team to carry that back a loss. So there was a lot of pressure on us. We were very aware of it.
So Doug Collins shoots the 2 3 throws. U.S. is now up by 1 point, and Soviets start to inbound the ball. Clock starts down to 2-1, and then everything stops. What happened?
Right. The officials basically realized that what happened was there was a timeout that was attempted to be called by the Soviets, but somehow the clock didn't work, or the timeout was tried or attempted to be called after the shot was taken, in which case the timeout shouldn't have occurred. But they played the last play, nothing happened, but the official came down and said, "Look, we got to reset this clock." And that was the official from FIBA, who, outside of his authority, decided that we're gonna reset the clock, and that set this whole resetting of clock incidences in motion.
And so now they inbounded again, and the 3 seconds.
The clock was misset. I think they set it to like 50 seconds or something like that. So the play failed again, but the clock was poorly set. It was another error.
But in any event, there was more than 3 seconds that passed, and that's where the iconic photos of you and was it Henderson hugging and
right.
You're very prominent in those pictures, I guess, because if I was a photographer, I would focus on you because you were the tallest man on court, and so basically the celebration ensued. You must have been ecstatic. Yeah.
Well, it was probably one of the highest moments and lowest moments in a very brief period of time in my life, but we thought we'd won it. Clearly, there was pandemonium on the court. We thought we'd come from behind and won the game.
To this day, as a kid, I was watching this. This is the first Olympics I remember. I ran around the house yelling, "We won! We won! We won!" I was that excited. It was such an exciting game, and so I can only imagine what it was like for the players. And then, so you've won, and are you trying to leave the court, or something's up?
There's a lot of milling around. The coaches are over the scorers table. There's very hard to understand because the coach, the referees didn't speak English, or at least one of the referees didn't speak English, and it's just total chaos. And we finally realized that they're going to play the last play one more time. So they cleared the floor, and here we go for the third time.
And now you're selected to guard the inbound pass, which you obviously you're the tallest man on the court, make it difficult to throw the length of the court, and the referee.
Stand by, everybody. We're going to just go to a quick commercial break while we get this squared away. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the Cyber Law and Business Report after this brief recess for our sponsor.
Webmasterradio.fm. Welcome to the place your competitors get their edge. Jump on it. We're here for you 24/7.
The best gavel-to-gavel legal news and information on the net is right here. This is the Cyber Law and Business Report, only on webmasterradio.fm.
And we're back. I guess it's only fitting we had some technical confusion as we're talking about the confusion that happened in the finals in the Olympic basketball final in 1972. Now, Tom, we were just talking about the third attempt at the last play of the game, and you were guarding the inbound pass, and you were told to back off. Is there any reason why that you should be required to do so under international rules?
No, there isn't. But the last thing I wanted to do was have an official called technical on me. I think the official was from Bulgaria, so he didn't speak English. You could see him motioning. You could see him motioning to my feet, so it's not like I'm making this up. I was just afraid he'd call technical on me, even though the player had more than enough room to back up. that's something I just wasn't going to take a risk at that point. I mean, probably in retrospect, how do you know what he's motioning for?
You don't.
I mean,
Yeah.
you just
And
don't.
and your
problem,
coaches have warned you that basically the referees are not going to be on our side.
Right, and so they were looking for a way to get this game over with, and so I just didn't want to be the culprit here. But it was who knows? I mean, if you give a team enough time to score, they're going to score. I mean, that's the bottom line.
You get to the locker room and you're told, I guess there's going to be a silver medal ceremony. And did you guys vote then, or did you talk that morning, or?
We discussed it then, and I think there was a mood not to accept it. We did talk about it again the next morning too, but I think the players were pretty certain, even after the game, that they were not going to accept the medal. So it was a unanimous position.
And 40 years later, it's still unanimous, is it not?
That's right. No one is decided that they want to take the medal.
And so the silver medal is somewhere. I saw an embassy report where they're not even quite sure where it is. They went to some Olympian official's basement or something. But you had a proposal that you recently published an op-ed, and that you think with the the Olympic Committee should issue gold medals to the U.S. team as well, just as it had done a few years back in the Winter Olympics for those the pair skaters who were deprived of a gold because of a bias of one referee. And tell us about that proposal.
Well, 10 years ago, I tried to appeal to the International Olympic Committee to give us the dual gold medal for the reasons you suggested, but it fell on deaf ears. More recently, I wrote an op-ed saying, maybe there's a grand compromise. Give us the dual gold medal to the U.S. team, and then we'll donate that to a Russian children's charity, along with millions of dollars of corporate contributions, and we can really do something very positive and get the Russian players to go along with that. Obviously, we give up something in the sense that we don't have the medals, but yet we're honored with the gold, and the Soviet Russian players would have to swallow some pride really to help their fellow countrymen. So it was an idea that to try to bring an end to this whole thing, this Cold War episode.
And this really is the height of Cold War sports. I mean, I can't think of a sporting event. Granted, there were always talks about East German judges in skating and elsewhere, but no sporting event during the Cold War was as marred by the politics of it as this one. And so, what was the reaction?
Right in the middle of the Cold War, I mean, there were a lot of geopolitical aspects to it. The SALT treaty had been signed. Nixon was making overtures to the Soviets, but he was also making overtures to the Chinese. He had gone to China earlier that year, so there was a lot of chess playing at the world level. And quite frankly, our game was really just a proxy war. We could have, as I said, Nixon and Brezhnev just could have had an arm wrestling match. I mean, the fact that the basketball game we were in a proxy war really didn't dawn on us until years later. Really, we just thought this was a sports event that got out of control, but it really was. It really was a Cold War episode, because we went to appeal the next day, and the vote was 3-2. The three nations that voted against us were all Eastern Bloc nations.
Right. And wasn't there one of the referees refused to sign the scorecard in protest?
Right. I think it was the Puerto Rican referee. He was yes, that's correct.
And so have you got any response from the Soviets? Excuse me, no longer such a thing, but the Russians or the Olympic Committee to your latest op-ed?
No, I don't. Obviously with the Olympics going on there, they've got other concerns. We have a reunion of our team in a couple of weeks, and we'll have a chance to talk about it.
Yeah,
we'll have a chance to talk about it then.
And how often did you guys have reunions?
This is really our first one.
First one. And but it would be, I think, a very appropriate gesture. I mean, clearly, the game was marred, and you can make an argument for both teams winning. So why not give both teams the gold?
Well, we would hope so, but I'm not sure the ILC would move on that. That's why I proposed something as I did recently.
Right. And how vivid is this game to you, 40 years later? Is this something that has ever faded in your memory, or it's always been right there?
It's one of those things. It's like Groundhog Day. It comes back every 10 years. People bring it up, on the anniversaries, and when there are Olympic games. So it's not something I think about every day, but it does come back, on its anniversaries.
It's like that skier on the Wild World of Sports opening.
Yes.
Actually, I went to law school with Freddie Brown, and I always felt bad for him every spring when they would show the pass that he made, and he said he's over it, but I'm sure it definitely isn't something he likes to see. Well, we only have a few minutes left, and so I want give you an opportunity to tell us some of the things you're doing now, and that you'd like us to know about.
Well, I'm chairman of a National Foundation on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition, which is a congressionally chartered foundation. We're helping support the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition, the First Lady's initiatives in those areas. I'm CEO, chairman of a company that is, we do mortgage services all over the country, including appraisals and title and settlement and asset dispositions. And I'm on the board of the Regents University of Maryland, working on that. In that capacity, we are trying to do something for my old coach, Lefty Driesell, and honor him next year. So all in all, staying pretty busy.
And what is it that you're trying to do for Lefty?
Well, we'd like to do some kind of memorial, either a statue or a head bust or something. We haven't determined that. We're still working through that, but something that would honor his 17 years at the university.
Now, the closest Lefty came to, I guess, the Final Four would have been the regional final game in '73 you guys had against Providence. And actually, I grew up in Providence, and so I remember that game quite well. And I just, having played against that team and having played against Bill Walton, at the start of the next season, if Providence actually was blowing out Memphis State in the regional in the semifinal game, and then Marvin Barnes gets injured, and ultimately they lose, and Memphis State gets blown out by UCLA, and everyone in Providence always wonders, could Providence have beaten Bill Walton and UCLA that year? And I'm just wondering, having played against both, if you have an opinion.
Well, no, I would say UCLA was a great team, but that Providence team was terrific too, and it's hard to predict, who would win that. But I wouldn't have counted out Providence. They had a terrific team.
Well, you can tell he's a skilled politician. A very good response, Congressman. I want to thank you very much for having you on the show. I really appreciate it. And this is an important thing to remember, both the contribution you guys made as athletes, and the wrong that still has not been corrected, and also the tragedy that happened 40 years ago. And I thank you for participating. I apologize for the glitches, but in some ways it's fitting it happened that way. But thank you again, Tom.
Thank you. Look forward to meeting sometime, and good luck with the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
That was Tom McMillen, and he's very well respected in Maryland and Washington. His work, even since leaving office, and he's done a lot in the area of Homeland Security. He's been very loyal to the Maryland community, and was a big backer of theirs in a lot of their games. So I think Lefty Driesell convincing Tom McMillen to come to Maryland has paid off handsomely for that school. He's done a great job for them, and so we're running short on time, so I am going to sign off. But first, I want to say happy birthday to a number of notable people, including Dustin Hoffman, Mel Tillis, and Connie Francis, hockey legend and lawyer and member of parliament Ken Dryden, and The Edge turns 50 today. So hopefully he's listening to this and that takes the edge out of turning 50. But something tells me I don't think so. But in any event, this is Bennett Kelly. You've been listening to Cyber Law and Business Report. Once again, I want to thank Tom McMillen for being a good sport and joining us. I think he gets a gold medal for his participation today. And that's all we have for you. I hope you'll join us next week on another edition of Cyber Law and Business Report. Check out our website, internetlawcenter.net, to get more information about the Internet Law Center and particularly our newsletter, Cyber Report. And look forward to continuing this discussion next week. So court is adjourned, and enjoy the rest of the Olympics. This is Bennett Kelly. Have a good week.
This has been a presentation of WebmasterRadio.fm, the world's largest business-to-business radio and podcast network. We welcome you to sample past episodes of this program, as well as our complete library of programs, on demand or on the air via our 24/7 live audio stream at www.webmasterradio.fm.